Hey, y'all. This is Haley, and welcome to today's episode of Real, the unedited life of a Christian woman, where it's okay to not be okay and where you can find authentic connection with other Christian women. So, today we're going to be talking about personal finance. I again have Misty with me, who's got a lot to share with you all today. I'm super excited. So, what we got going on, Misty?
It's cold outside, but we got a hot topic.
We do.
Oh, this is going to be 101 of what not to do with your money.
Oh, boy.
We've made mistakes.
Absolutely, we have.
Literally paid for those mistakes. You talked about Dave Ramsey in your first episode about this. Love him or hate him, he can be polarizing, but he does the steps work.
He does, yeah.
You know, you may argue with him about term insurance and all that stuff, the investing part. We're not going to get into that. We're going to get into the basics of live within your means, pay off as much debt as you can. You don't have to go work 8 jobs.
Right. Yeah. I tend to say that I'm Dave Ramsey-ish, because it can be a lot. And there are people out there who do Dave Ramsey to a T, and that is fine if that's what works for you. But I find ish is good for me.
Ish is good for me too, because I'm not eating rice and beans, you know. And people are all different. You know, the people that call in, I'm like, thank God I'm not them. But then I look at things that I've done. So, you know, his whole shtick, his motto is live like no one else. So later on you can live and give like no one else. So yes, his reason for being financially responsible is faith-based.
Right.
You pay God first, you pay yourself, and then you pay your debts. You know, and is he perfect? No, he's filed bankruptcy.
Right.
He's made mistakes. Donald Trump has filed bankruptcy several times.
That is very true.
Something about making money, though, is sometimes you have to take risks on that level.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a hard line to walk sometimes. It takes money to make money, they say. So I think sometimes we get ourselves into trouble with that. But on the other side, sometimes it's necessary.
Right. So not even getting into the whole Dave thing, you know, like we said, it's faith-based, it's biblical, whatever you subscribe to as far as giving to your church. We as Christians, that's a step that we take to show our faith and that we trust him with our lives, and that with whatever we give, even if it's the last penny that we have, he is still going to supply our needs.
Right. Yeah. And I do think, obviously, and you do too, that it's important to give to the church so that his work can be done.
Exactly.
But yeah.
And there's a good Joyce Meyer story of where they were really, really poor, and she had wanted these new dish towels. She didn't have any dish towels. And she had prayed and prayed and prayed about these dish towels, and they did not have the extra money to get it. And she goes to the door one day, and her neighbor has knocked and hands her a set of dish towels. Wow. She said, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I just thought you needed this set of dish towels. He will provide for what you need.
Yeah.
Even if you're down to your last dime. And it's funny, Dave also says nobody goes poor by giving.
Right.
You know, you're not, and it's our needs. It's not our wants.
That is a
Lord,
very good
help
point.
me get this coffee, you know, this $8 coffee. And then we're supposed to give cheerfully, you know, with a joyful heart.
Point.
Like, well, here's my last $5.
Right.
You know, I wanted to go buy me a whatever, you know, in 2 Corinthians 9:7, each one must do as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And we are directed in the Bible to be stewards of our money, to be responsible. You know, those in debt, they're slaves to the lender.
Yeah. Yes.
My papa, he never bought anything he couldn't pay for in cash.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not talking about like maybe a car or a house, but.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, our older generation kind of more so adopted that than we have.
No, I mean, things were cheaper, but you also, I mean, you might
the wages were lower too.
Exactly. It was cyclical, you know, and now we are, and I'm not going to lie. I mean, even my family, if we want something, we go buy it. Not talking about fur coats and Maseratis, but, you know, it's hard to Christmas shop for us because we're like, well, don't get me anything. I have everything I need.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff I don't.
Yeah. It's kind of a culture thing now, I think.
So back to the Dave, if you know anything about his principles, there are free spirits who just spend with abandon, and there are nerds. And the
Right.
nerds are the budgeters. You know what stinks?
What?
I'm both.
Girl, me too.
And what stinks about being a nerd and a free spirit is that your free spirit, fleshly, you are just having a ball.
Mm-hmm.
You are buying that makeup you want. You
so
are
relate.
buying that $7 drink, but you also know and understand on paper what kind of mess you're putting yourself in.
Absolutely. I totally relate to that because that is me to a T.
Yeah. And, like I said, I've used Quicken since 2004. So I have a paper trail of all my mistakes just following me around. And, this is going to be probably a lengthy episode. We may have to do 2 parts of this because I'm going to walk with you. You think you know somebody, but you don't know how somebody can make stupid, an educated person can give into the flesh and make some of the dumbest mistakes. Now, some mistakes were my mistakes. Some mistakes were things that came up through my marriage that literally fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be dropping some Theo Vaughn stuff today too, because it's going to be like, there is no way she can't be making that up.
Guys, we're trying to be real with y'all. And that is showing.
We're stripping it down.
It's showing vulnerability.
I got clothes on because I don't want anybody throwing their dinner up, but it's terrible because you get the high of the spending, and then you also feel the guilt when you see it on paper. And when I was married, I'm sitting there putting all this stuff in Quicken, and he would be like, "How much money do we have?" I'm like, "None."
Right.
None. It's all going to bills.
Yeah.
Payments.
It's like, how do I make this much money?
And let's buy this. Like, okay, it's just another payment. That was the motto. It's just another payment.
Right.
And so, no fault of my mom and dad, but nobody ever really taught me about money.
I feel the same way.
And I never wanted for anything that I wanted. Aside from getting a brand new Expedition when I turned 16. I was heartbroken over that.
Yeah.
But I kind of knew that wasn't going to happen. But I felt privileged because I always think back to the fact that I never was a child that in school had to wait till my mama or daddy got paid to pay for my field trip.
Right. I never felt that way either.
And that to me was privilege.
Yeah.
The fact that my mom had, or my parents had that money right then. So you just think they have money for everything.
Right. If you don't feel the hurt of it or
and they
then
never,
you don't realize
they never argued about money in front of me. It wasn't really a topic of discussion, which can go good and bad. You can have positive discussions about money. First job was at Kmart in high school.
This was your first job?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people worked at Kmart.
I remember you working at Kmart.
Carrie Dilly, Melissa Foster, a bunch of us worked at Kmart.
Yeah.
My sister, Shayla, Chad, that's where they were in high school together, but they both worked at Kmart. And I still have my name tag. I should have worn it tonight. I don't know where my socks are, but I know where my Kmart name tag is from 25 years ago. But, it's just in elementary and middle school, all my money, like when they would give me money for birthday or Christmas, it all went to like books and music. B. Dalton, Walden Books, Music Land, everything went to books and music. Which, if you're a parent, you're not going to yell at your kid for buying a bunch of books. It wasn't like I was out buying cocaine on the street.
Do you remember having your first checking account?
Yeah. So that's pet peeve. People who cannot write checks.
Yeah.
And a lot of the younger generation. Well, not only they've not taught these things. Okay. Take a walk back with me. South Green, 5th grade. We had a bank.
Yes.
Guys, younger people that we had a bank. We had to apply for bank positions.
Yes, I do remember that.
We had tellers. We had a VP. We had a president. They ordered checks for us. They taught us how to write checks. We had a checking account. We had a savings account. We went to the bank up on the stage in the cafeteria. We learned right then how to do that.
I will still say, like, I remember learning about the process and how it worked, and that was super helpful, but I didn't learn a lot about personal finances in
No,
general.
there was no financial advice.
Mm-mm.
It was
Even I mean, throughout school in general, even and,
not at all.
I don't even remember, like, parenting wise that I grew up learning, like, you should save this much, you should spend this much, you should, I always knew, I guess, the importance of it, but,
Yeah.
like, I don't ever remember I remember sitting down and talking about my checking account, opening it at, like, I don't know, maybe 13 years old, something like that. I remember sitting down with my dad, but it was more of a technicality of how this works, not this is what you need to make sure you have.
Yeah. I think I opened my first one at 16 when I started working,
Mhm.
and that was at ESB.
Or maybe it was a
And
savings account at 13, I don't
yeah.
remember.
And I do remember, you know, I think I almost went in the hole a couple times.
I mean, I'm
But
sure.
I think it
I
was
remember,
around
like, getting down
prom.
to, like, $8 in my
Yeah, and
account and thinking,
I remember I would go through the drive-through and do the ATM deposit just to make
yeah.
sure I had enough, I'd be, like, putting change,
Right, yeah,
trying to make sure I
yeah.
had enough money.
Different then.
But, like, and then in high school, gosh, I mean, yeah, we were privileged. Dad
Mhm.
would hand me $300 or $400 and go in the Limited and American Eagle, and I'd come out with 7 shirts.
Yeah.
And I'd come out with, like, 2 bags, and he was like, "Where's my change?" I'm like, "I spent it all." And he was like, if you walk back to the back of that store, they've got these things called clearance and, sale racks, but it was
Yeah,
hard. Like, and I was overweight. So, you go to those racks and everything's an extra small and a small. It was
yeah.
hard to, that's my excuse, I guess, but I didn't ever go back to those, I guess. And then in college, I mean, I feel like I had more money in college than I have now. And I didn't work in
Yeah, I
college.
agree. I think about that sometimes. I did work in college. My first degree was healthcare administration, went to Western, and I remember I had a part-time job at a general surgeon's office, and so I was working 20, 30 hours a week with a full-time school load,
Right.
and so, I was staying busy, but I remember I would go to the mall with Nick, and I would spend, like, 3 or $400 in one trip because I didn't have any bills to pay,
Right.
like, I
Right.
lived at home, and
It
I
wasn't
had
real
a
life
yeah,
for you
I
yet.
had at that time, I had a scholarship for tuition, and then I didn't have room and board because I lived at home, so I had all this free money with no bills.
Free money.
And,
Nothing's
like
for
well, no,
free.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
we
me,
know this.
but, like, no monthly bills to pay, so I was living it up, and that's just not reality. I don't think it set me up for a good place when we got married,
No,
right?
and then I did lie because, everybody, some of I went to Belmont and then I got homesick and I came back and
Huh.
was doing part-time at Western. So I did when I came back to Glasgow, Western campus, I did go back to work at Kmart. And
Oh,
then when I went to Bowling Green campus, I got caught up. I graduated in 4 years because I did summer
yeah. Did
classes.
you go back to Belmont?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
you graduated from Belmont.
I went back, junior year. It was funny because I came back, I was homesick. I was like, "Everybody knows what they're doing." Nobody knew what they were doing. I go
No.
to songwriters rounds now, and even, Hillary Lindsay and people are up there like, "I had no idea what I was doing." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Golly." But also saved a lot of money going to a state school for 2 years and then
absolutely.
transferring.
Mhm.
That was a God thing. Because even
Yeah,
that first semester, I was like, "I wanna go back. I wanna go back." And dad's like, "Okay, give it 2 years here. In
right,
2 years, if you wanna go back to Belmont, you go back to Belmont."
right.
But this was also a different time. We were living off residual money from loans. I did not have one of
Yeah,
these private loans that was 18%.
that's
I
insane.
don't know what happened, I guess, and I get ticked talking about it because, I mean, my interest rate was like 1 point, like,
I don't
08%.
ever remember an interest rate at 1%,
And
like,
I
but I
had
never
2
had a
loans.
crazy one either.
We had a subsidized and an
Right,
unsubsidized, and
yeah,
then we had grant, or federal merit scholarship
right,
money.
but there were also grants too. I mean,
Yeah.
I never got a grant, I don't think.
And then, I had my portion, my parents had their portion. My student loan payment was less than $200 a month for 15 years. And
Yeah,
I don't and my old roommate, like, when we graduated,
mhm,
she financed all 4 years at Belmont. She financed study abroad. She financed everything that could be financed.
yeah.
And I'm talking when we got out of there, 15 envelopes a month.
And that's been a while. I mean,
she had about, I think she said it ended up being $1,600 a month.
How did she even do that?
She didn't. They all did. She went into default on all of them.
Oh,
I don't know what ended up happening, but
yeah.
I don't even know if you could file bankruptcy on student loans. I have no idea, but it was a mess. And I was just sitting there thinking,
they can take your paycheck.
Well, I don't know. It
Over
was a
school
mess.
loans.
It was a big mess. And I was glad I wasn't in her shoes because I'm sitting there thinking, we have the same Bachelor of Business degree and you are literally in the hole for like life.
Yeah.
Because you thinking about it, Belmont at the time was like 30. Now it's like 60, 4 years. It's insane.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then, and when I was at Western, I took an accounting class and I made like a 90. I loved accounting. I love numbers and figures. Like I'm left and right brain. Like I like the creative thing, the writing, the comedy, but I like being a nerd too. And part of me was like, well, maybe you should go in accounting, but I had to go in the music business,
Yeah, well, that's more fun, right?
Well, totally. You look back at things and you're like, was that a mistake? And it's like, absolutely not. If I had not gone down that road, I would not be where I am now.
Yeah,
at all.
I agree.
Sitting right in front of this microphone.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree too.
So, but what happened was, I'm in the music business and I'm making $10 an hour. That's the thing. And I was lucky. I was so lucky. I ended up interning at Capitol Records where I met Vanessa, my second mother, who ended up taking me under her wing.
Yeah.
And when she left the record label and formed her own boutique company, she brought me with her. And at that time, the music industry was going through a severe change. There were 5 big labels, things were, merging. People were recording things in their homes.
Right. Yeah.
It was crazy. You had the music downloads, which I was guilty of.
Right. Yeah.
But it was crazy. But yeah, so I made $10 an hour in the music business. And my roommate and I had an apartment. We lived on campus, which was astronomically expensive. So the next year we got an apartment off campus and we literally paid $700 a month for an apartment in Nashville between the two of us. That same apartment now is about 18.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it was 700 then, there's no telling now.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And it went up to when we renewed, because she was going to get married and I knew that I was going to try to buy a house. So we only did a 6-month lease and it went to $725. We were like, oh, it's going to go up so much. It went up $25. So she buys a house, with her fiance, and I go looking for a house and I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend about, $80,000-$90,000.
Is this in Nashville or is this okay?
So my boss at the time, they lived in Mount Juliet. And at the time, if you know Mount Juliet now, it's crazy. It's like the new Brentwood.
Yeah.
Very expensive, has a wonderful school district in Wilson County. And my realtor was a friend of mine. And the very first house he showed me was in Mount Juliet. Brand new house, 2,500 square feet. The bedroom was like 16 by 30, had a his and hers, had a note with 3 bedroom, 3 bath.
Yeah. Sounds nice.
3 living rooms, and it was brand new. It's like when you go looking for something and they show you the high end and then everything else is like crap.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's only a $500 deposit. There was no down payment. This was 2005.
Wow.
I made $10 an hour, y'all.
Oh my
Mistake
gosh.
number 1.
What
I bought
were they doing?
$174,655 house.
Did you buy it?
Yes.
How long were you there?
And my mom and dad were freaking out. Vanessa was freaking out. She was like, what?
What have you done?
Like, what? How are you? I'm like, well, I'm going to have roommates. I'm going to have 2 roommates. And they'll pay, they paid $525 all inclusive.
Right.
But let me tell you guys, this is what happened.
Yeah, I can't wait.
People who don't know about these loans, which you talked about, and you had one of these bad loans.
Yeah, we got in over our heads in
You could have been a 5-year-old and you could have bought a $200 million house probably. Yeah. So I go in there and, of course my credit was great, and I'm like, how is this so easy? So it was a $500 deposit.
That's crazy.
And I remember telling my dad, I've wasted $500 on worse things if this doesn't end up going through. So the loan was through, I don't even remember, but it was, what they did was, okay, you think about loans now, you think about conventional loans, you think 20% down.
Right.
fixed rate,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
now 6, 7, 8%.
15, 20,
Got to
30
have a
years.
621 credit score, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a 100% loan,
Mm-hmm.
80/20. So 80 was a 5-year ARM.
Oh boy.
So that's where a lot of people had 5-year ARMs. And then after
Yep.
5 years, they couldn't afford their mortgage payment because
Right.
it doubled.
Right.
So the 20% was a HELOC, a home equity line of credit,
Wow.
through First Tennessee. I know. Oh, plus every payment I made was interest only.
Oh yeah. That'll
So
get you.
that's where, you know,
And
I
you
was
know, these things
making
are
the
so
payments.
complicated. You know, first time
I
home
was
buyers,
22 years old.
they don't understand what they're doing.
And I wasn't going to listen to anybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nobody was going to tell me not to buy this house because
Right.
I wanted it. So, and they were, and the bank, I mean, who am I to say, who are you to say this bank's giving me this money?
Right.
So luckily I did keep the house. Oh my gosh, it was crazy because you had roommates and I had really good roommates. Well, I had one really bad one, but it was hard to get a dynamic of 2, 3 people that all got along.
Right.
Oh, the stories. But so I had it 22 months. Had it 2 months late. I bought it in May of 2005 and sold it in March of 2007. And luckily, because it was going to get bad, because I was losing, you know, one of the roommates was moving out, and I'm like, what am I going to do? At that point, the HELOC had gotten to like 13%.
Oh,
like, I can't even remember what my final payment was. But, you know, never missed a payment. Thank God.
That's
I had
good.
help. Had help, you know.
Yeah.
But sold it. And in those 22 months, 9 different people lived in the house.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was a challenge in and of itself, the whole roommate situation.
Yeah. And then every time I lost a room, it seemed like I always like everything. It was always in the fall that something happened. But I sold it, and God bless me because I had credit card debt at the time, and I sold the house. I had it on the market for one time, and it didn't sell, and I was freaking out. And then I changed realtors and ended up selling it. This family came and basically was trying to buy it from me in the driveway. I'm like, look, you got to call my realtor. And it's the same people that bought it live there now. That house is worth $500,000.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would sell it. I would sell it just to get the
So
profit.
they paid, I was asking like 204, and they paid 2095. I think like 13 grand on it, and it paid my credit card debt off.
That's awesome.
So then I moved to Antioch, which prayers for Antioch High School and everybody in that area. That's horrible, you know, but I bought, once again, a brand new condo, was a lot cheaper.
Right.
But then, this was 100% loan, but it was no PMI. I didn't even have to have a down payment, but it was no PMI.
Yeah.
That's private mortgage insurance for those of you who don't put 20% down. You often do that so that, you know, the mortgage companies learn their lesson. We're not taking a chance if you don't put 20% down.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was a lesson, but you know, the credit card debt went up again because, and I did have a roommate, you know, a girl from Belmont had looked me up, and she was moving back from LA. And so she lived with me and paid rent. But it's just, you know, you're in Nashville, things are expensive.
They are.
You're driving all the time. You know, you're in the business, so you're going out, you're doing these things, you're buying clothes. You know, I'm an emotional spender like I'm an emotional eater.
Yeah.
You know, so I got into credit card, you know, some debt again, and the parents helped me out. And then, you know, fast forward to 2014, when I got out of the music business, changed careers, and met the man that I married. You know, I still had credit card debt, and I was very honest about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I get married to someone who was not honest about their finances. And soon those things came back to bite me, not just him. I've always been very, you know, I will miss a meal before I miss a payment, and y'all can look at me and tell I ain't missed no meals. So, I mean, I want my bills to be paid, you know, and, you know, and I look back and I'm like, even in college, I was like, yeah, I was going to be 21 years old. I was going to start my Roth IRA. I was going to max it out every year.
Right.
You know, and it just doesn't happen unless it's just like the overeating. Until you make the behavioral changes.
Yep.
You're going to be fat and you're going to be poor.
Yeah.
If you don't make some changes.
Yeah.
And, you know, looking back though, I feel like I've been financially responsible aside from sometimes the careless spending, and
Yeah.
it adds up. But
Mhm.
I also think that, I've grown a lot in that I saw someone who completely ran from every bad financial decision they ever made. And
Yeah, I
it's
guess
gonna come back to you.
yeah, that's good perspective to have, I think.
And it's cheating people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'll just be honest, like I get married. Well, I'll just spill some tea right now. When you're not even married yet and the sheriff comes to your house and asks your dad where the guy you're seeing is,
Yikes.
I mean, that should have been a red flag. It was over a bill that hadn't been paid. So
Oh,
we set up a payment plan for that.
yeah.
And then when I get married, a few months later, which when we met, he had a vehicle that had an astronomical payment on
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Astronomical. Because it was bought within a year of a very poor financial decision that he
Mhm.
had to make.
Yeah.
And I think you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And you buy a vehicle after that, and you're talking 30 and 40% interest. So the payment was
Oh,
$687
30 and 40%
for a
interest?
like $30,000 vehicle.
Dang.
Payment was 687. I didn't even have a car payment at the month. I was driving my black Grand Prix with duct tape on it. I mean, that's like cars and cell phones. I'm going to drive them until they quit working.
Amen,
I'm 42
sister.
and I've had 3 cars my whole life, 2 Grand Prix and my Acadia.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like change,
Yeah, that's pretty
and I
impressive.
don't like payments,
Yeah.
you know. And
Mhm.
so lo and behold, I said, we can't even afford this. I don't have a car payment and we can't afford this.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I know somebody can sell it for me. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay. So the car disappears. And then a few months after we get married, we get a letter from Capital One Auto Finance saying we owe over 10 grand for this vehicle that's not been seen in months. And I said, what is this? Well, I didn't
Yeah.
exactly get out of it what I owed. And I said, and you were going to tell me when?
Right.
What
Wow.
are you talking about? So thank the good Lord I called, and they're like, well, we'll settle for, it was less than 3. I still have the receipts of
Well,
all
that's
this.
that's a blessing right there.
Yeah. So set up another payment plan.
Yeah.
Well, then I start getting phone calls because
Oh,
they've
boy.
located this person that I'm married to, found
Mhm.
out who will answer the phone,
Right.
and it's credit card after credit card.
Oh my gosh.
They're not huge balances, but it was every other day. Oh, well, somebody took those out in my name. Well, I mean, unless you've been buying clothes at Lane Bryant, unless you had a third life I didn't know about, you know,
Right.
Lane Bryant, Old Navy, Finger Hut. What's funny, he denied all this stuff, and I found receipts that
Oh
he
my
had left from the
gosh.
Finger Hut purchases that he had left in the storage building that we had together.
Wow.
So then that happened. And I'll just be honest, we're talking about personal finance. It's a
Mhm.
big part of a marriage.
Oh, it's
I mean,
absolutely.
it's
Yes.
top reason why people get
Mhm.
divorced. This was
Mhm.
not the reason why we divorced, but
I'm sure it stressed
I'm
the
going to say
marriage.
this right now. At that point, we had been married maybe a year.
Mhm.
I thought, I don't know this person.
Yeah.
I wanted a divorce.
Yeah.
No one knew that. So no one knew this. I told my, parents and some friends this after the fact, but I was embarrassed. I
Yeah.
didn't I was hurt.
Yeah.
I was I was angry because money, like I said, if even if I didn't have it in bountiful amounts,
Mhm.
I believed in being responsible and paying for what, you know, paying for things
Yeah.
and not running from it. And so I just kept, let's pull your credit report. Let's try to get, if, he was denying these things. But,
Right.
I said, if we can get ahead of these things and get in front of it, we can argue these things because literally, if you have not taken these, things out, we can get copies of the applications and see that
But he
your
was lying?
signature doesn't match. And it was every time it was a, change the subject. It was a change the
Oh, yeah.
subject. So I just would get my credit card out and we would pay $600 here, $300 there. Send me the receipt. We want to make sure this is paid off. And, at first I thought it was a scam. You owe
Yeah,
this, you owe
right,
this.
right,
But
because
then
there were
after
so many.
2 weeks of getting a phone call every day,
Golly.
so then that goes on and I keep pushing. I keep pushing. Let me see your credit report. Let me see your credit report. Breaks down crying. Well, I didn't want to show it to you because I was afraid you'd leave me. It wouldn't be the first time. And I'm like, I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
I mean, this was even later on.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I was like, I've made a mistake.
Hmm.
And I wanted a divorce at that point. But you know what kept me from it? Pride.
Yeah.
I'm like, you've never had a boyfriend. You marry the first man that comes along. And then a year later, you're going to get a divorce. You're going to be the exact same person that you sit there and talk crap about.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. Even as Christians, we sit there and we do judge.
Yeah, we do.
And I was judging myself and I thought, I don't want this embarrassment. So I just kept on and on and on. And I thought he loved me.
Yeah.
So we're going on and we're going on. And I remember one of the days that I was really pushing to pull the credit report. It was a Sunday. He got to feeling bad. He was having like pain in his chest. And I finally get him to go. He will go to urgent care. Won't go anywhere but urgent care. And I'm like, they're going to send you to the hospital anyway.
Right.
So we go to the hospital. He has a blood clot in his lung.
Seriously?
Yes. And I'm thinking the whole time, he's faking being sick and he has a blood clot in his lung. And so I feel bad for pushing.
Oh, gosh.
But you know what? When you're purposefully lying to people and doing bad things to people, I fully believe that that manifests inside you.
Yeah.
And that will rot your bones.
Well, I fully believe that stress can kill you.
Stress can absolutely kill you. And when you're living a lie.
Yeah.
And you've done this your whole life. So the kicker of this was we finally pulled the credit report. I just pulled it myself. I'm like, I have your social.
Right. Yeah.
I'm your wife. I have a right to know.
Yeah.
Nothing else was on it except a thing from a jewelry, Sterling Jewelers or whatever.
Oh,
and
boy.
It was so I make the joke of I still wear my wedding ring because I had to co-sign for it and I had to help pay for it. He went to Jared and I had to co-sign. I said, that's what we should call this episode. So we get this and he was like, well, that was taken care of in what he had to do before to take care of, the bills, supposedly wrapped up in that and taken care of. And so I believed him.
Yeah.
And then a few, months, years, I don't even know. It was towards the end of our marriage. We got a letter saying that we owed Sterling Jewelers like almost $7,000.
Whoa.
And I think back to when we got my engagement ring and when they were running his finances, pulling his credit, he didn't qualify for it. And he was like, oh, well, I bought a bracelet for somebody and I didn't pay for it. I was like, okay, I didn't know the amount. I was like, well, he could have bought a $500 bracelet that he didn't pay for and now they're not. So I had to co-sign for my own engagement ring. And so like Kay, Jared, and Zales are all under the same company. Sterling, whatever.
Yeah.
So come to find out, y'all, he had bought an engagement ring for someone a few months before he met me.
Whoa.
And never paid for it. Don't know where the ring is.
Oh.
One of the girls that he had talked to actually accused me of wearing the ring that he bought her. And I'm like, honey, we spent an hour me looking at this ring. And I was like, this is not your ring. I picked it out. I helped pay for it. So I call and I'm like, okay, let's negotiate this down. Why I even just didn't leave him right then, I have no idea. Because I kept believing that it was something that somebody had done.
Right. Well, when you're in that
knowledge.
Situation, you don't want to believe it.
Exactly. And I was stupid, and so I call and they're like, no, you have to pay $1,000 down and we'll accept $250 a month until this is paid off.
Whoa.
So we spent the last 2 years of our marriage paying off so many debts. I added up, and I had credit card debt that was upfront about to him.
Right.
And then we had our own credit card debt. But all in all, there was about $18,000 of things that came back to bite, not just him, but us.
Golly.
So that, my friends, those are mistakes you don't want to make, because were we tithing like we should? No.
Yeah.
Were we living like we should? No, because I was completely stressed, sitting at Quicken thinking, what can we do? What can we do? And we were drowning.
Yeah.
And then he decides to leave all the credits in my name.
Oh my God.
Aside from, he had bought a motorcycle. He had qualified for that on his own because I had helped fix his credit. And this was his mindset of money. It never, ever, ever changed.
Yeah.
It was, okay, you're buying this motorcycle. You're going to get $1,000 worth. Go out and pick out whatever you want in the store. Okay, do you know what that means?
You're going to pay it all back.
Yeah. Anybody with common sense is going to say, okay, they're wrapping that in your loan.
Right.
Did not understand to the end of the day, or to now, ever.
It's just free money, right?
It's not free money. He's like, what do you want? What do you want? I'm getting this and I'm getting that. I'm like, I don't want anything. I'm like, they're not giving you $1,000. This isn't like supermarket sweep. It ain't go throw a bunch of helmets in your cart and run out the door. You are paying this back with interest.
Yeah.
Never, ever understood what I was, either didn't understand, or somebody like that, they don't care.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah. So he leaves. We have $60,000 of credit card debt in my name because I had the good credit.
Oh my gosh. Bless your heart.
I have to file bankruptcy.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, I know there's a stigma associated with that. You talk
about being one of the most embarrassing things. Like I can tell people how to budget, not necessarily live good by it, but, and I feel like I gave in to so many things because he did, like, above anything, he did work hard.
Yeah.
Horrible husband to me in the end, but he
because
worked hard.
He worked
his
hard,
tail off.
You felt like,
I mean, we would literally, like, one night we literally had an argument about money. Turns right around 2 seconds later. Can I get this $1,300? We had extra $1,300. And I just look at him. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I want this decked toolbox, waterproof toolbox. And I'm like, okay, you do heating and cooling on the side.
Yeah.
You work all these hours. Yeah, we'll get it.
And there's that part of it too.
That's manipulation.
Yeah.
That is manipulation.
Yeah.
And obviously came from a family that did not give him good financial advice.
Right.
But you also learn to be dishonest about things. And that's one thing that my parent, as far as money, dishonesty was never an option. It's funny.
Right.
When I had to file bankruptcy, they were like, we've never really filed bankruptcy for anybody that's never missed a payment.
Yeah.
They had to literally tell me, stop paying these bills. And it was just, I hated it, and that's been, 3 years ago, but it hurt in so many ways.
Yeah. But I would say it's a blessing though.
It's completely, it was the only way that I was going to get out of that debt.
Yeah.
Like if we had stayed together and with the interest, we were never going to come out of that.
It had to have felt like a weight was lifted.
It did. It was embarrassing.
Right. As painful as it was. Make sure you catch part 2 next week, where Misty and I dive deeper into the mistakes we made with houses and mortgages, and our discussion of retirement and what we wish we had done differently. Thank you so much for listening. For more content, find Real with Haley online at realwithhaley.com and on social media via Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Links all on the website. Again, that's realwithhaley.com. Thanks for listening, and y'all have a great week.